I wanted to talk today about the importance of career and what role it plays in our life, because it is something that is incredibly important. And I want to talk about this from the perspective of someone that has gone from a relatively well-paid sales job that was higher in stress, and then deciding to change for a relatively low paid, almost minimum wage job that has very little stress. And the kind of journey that I've been on in the last year and what I have learned as a result of that. Lately, this channel has been getting a lot of attention for the career-based content. And I think that's because if you're of the same age as me or a similar age, then our grandparents were always taught a very specific path that gave predictable success. This was in the age before the internet was around. And if you wanted a successful career, a life that was full of abundance, a nice house, car, a family to look after, to be able to put food on the table, then a predictable way to do that was to go to university, was to get an education, to specialise in a particular field. And a lot has changed on that front in the last 40, 50 years. And I think a lot of people now start to question the bigger picture. They want to know not how they get there, not how they do a specific job or how they get rich, but why they would want to do it in the first place. And I think back when our grandparents' era, there wasn't enough people out there who were wealthy saying to us, you know, I got all these riches and it didn't make me happy. And I think we've seen it. We've seen it a lot over the years of people telling us that the path to happiness, which is ultimately, I think, what all of us want, is not through necessarily just working your ass off. And so we want to do something that actually means something in the world. And in an ideal world, we would do something that is meaningful, that also pays us well for it and allows us to live a life of comfort, of joy, of peace. And that's very much where I can see this channel going, is a more kind of holistic based career and finance type thing, because I feel like I have now been on both sides of the fence. I've been on the side where I'm making really good money but working long hours and having to grind my ass off for it and wondering why the hell I'm doing it and never having any time to enjoy all the money that I'm earning. And then on the flip side of that, I've worked minimum wage jobs. I'm currently working a near minimum wage job. But the joy of that is that there is absolutely no stress, that I go to work, I do my job, I come home, I don't take that work home with me, and there is no stress even when I'm on the job. And so obviously there are pros and cons to both. And what I have been left wondering is how you are supposed to find the balance. Where does the balance lie between having a life of freedom, of purpose, of joy, of financial abundance, of abundance in any area that you value, but also of having to earn that money, having to do something that pays you for your time or your investments or whatever. And I think that's really where I want to aim for in life. I want to have money. I think we all do. I want to have nice things. I want to have a nice house. I want to be able to go and explore and see the world. But at the same time, I don't want to spend my entire life or dedicate my entire life to a career that doesn't mean something to me. And so where I want to head is to find some work that is deeply meaningful and purposeful to me, and to hopefully make good money in the process. And I want to go on that journey, and I want to take you on that journey with me, and I want to show you how I am doing it, hopefully, as I go. But let me tell you a little bit about my story. A lot of you recently have come to this channel because I made a video about quitting your job early, or too early. And I talked about my job in sales, and I'll just quickly go over that in case you're coming onto this channel for the first time. I had a 6-figure sales career, and I was doing very well. And for the most part, I enjoyed that line of work, but it was stressful. There were deadlines, there were targets, there were KPIs. And I was working a lot, and I was making this money, which was fantastic, but I didn't necessarily have time to enjoy it. And I ended up getting burned out. I ended up feeling a bit lost. I don't even know if burnout can be the term. I could have continued going, but there was this question in my mind that was, why am I doing this? What is the purpose? And I don't have a family, I don't have kids, and I think for a lot of people that are in this situation, their purpose and their why is their kids, and that is enough to keep them in a career that maybe they don't fully enjoy. But for me, I didn't have that commitment to another human being, in the sense that I had to financially support them. And so I was questioning it. It was such a nice place to be that I never had to worry about money. I was always earning far more than I needed. And that's not to say that I had a lavish lifestyle. I had a nice flat, I had a nice car, but generally my expenses were pretty low and my earnings were pretty high. And so whenever I had the opportunity to go out and enjoy myself, or to go for a meal or whatever, I always had the cash to do that. And I never even had to look at my bank account, never even had to think about it. I just bought it. And that was a nice position to be in, but I began to question why I was doing it, or what was the point of having all this money. And I couldn't shake that question. No matter how much I tried, no matter how much I tried to buy nice things or go away, I couldn't really get an answer to that question. And there was a lot of other stuff going on in my life at the time anyway, but I decided that the best thing for me to do was to go travelling. And so I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand, and it was my intention to kind of travel around the whole of Southeast Asia, because I had travelled to Thailand when I was 19, and I wanted to kind of relive those brilliant memories that I had when I was out there. And I got there. I guess I enjoyed the process of travelling for a short while, all of the new scenes, particularly somewhere like Bangkok, which is just such an assault on the senses in every way. And then I eventually ended up travelling to an island called Koh Chang, Elephant Island. Really beautiful island. I got this little bungalow on the beach, white sandy beach, palm trees, blue water, like everything you can imagine as paradise. And I used to wake up every day and sit on my balcony and look out at this fantastic vista. And not long after I had been there, that question came back to me. Why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And to be honest with you, that scared the crap out of me, because I thought that by leaving this sales career that I wouldn't have the burden of that worry of why, that I had time to kind of figure it out. But that question was still there, and it just had been replaced. Instead of it was why I was working so hard and earning this money, it was, why am I sitting on this beach in Thailand? Why am I here? And so what was supposed to be a long journey of self-discovery around Southeast Asia turned out to be 3 weeks sat on a beach, and then I came home. And I did that because I realised that the problems that I had in the UK weren't left in the UK when I got in that plane. And the minute that I had time to sit down and be quiet and to reflect, that question came back to me. And I think that question was always there in the back of my mind, that question of why am I doing this? It's just I had less time maybe to think about it when I was in sales because I was so busy, and I had a lot more time to think about it when I was in Thailand. So I came back and I made a video about coming back from Thailand. And just about how the whole thing was not what I expected it to be, and that it didn't fix all my problems. And I went into, I would say, a pretty dark place at that point, because I didn't have the answers and I had no idea where to find them. You know, I had held on so deeply to this idea that if I was to go travelling, then I would just figure it all out. And that was my kind of shining light, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. And some backstory, the reason I stayed in my sales career as long as I did was because I also had a renovation of a property that I was doing, and that took far longer than I expected. And when I first bought that place, it was always my idea to go on a solo travel adventure, but it was supposed to take a year. It took 4 years. And so I'd always held in my mind this idea that I only had to grind it out. I only had to embrace the suck for as long as it took to finish this project. And once it was done, then I would be able to travel and I would have all these great experiences and I would just figure it out. And I would come back refreshed and renewed and know exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that is not what happened. And I don't know if you can relate to that, where you've had this kind of goal in your mind of the thing that you want to achieve, and you have embraced the suck for, I mean, in some people's cases, decades of just going through the grind, knowing that one day eventually they'll get to this idea, this process, this thing that will be their saviour and will make all of those years of suffering worth it. I don't know if you can relate to that, but it's certainly what happened to me. And so I went travelling and I came back feeling really dejected, really depressed, because I thought to myself, well, this one thing that was supposed to be my saviour, that was supposed to help me figure it all out, wasn't the thing. So what now? And I struggled with that. And I tried lots of different things. You know, I started making a hell of a lot more videos here on this channel. I tried launching a course on this channel for a while. And eventually I realised that I had to do something. I had to have some kind of regular activity in my life. And so a job came up around Christmas time working for the postal service here in the UK. And during Christmas time, as you can imagine, they get super busy. So they always need extra staff. And I thought this was just going to be some temporary thing, that I would be there for maybe a couple of months, figure my stuff out, and then I kind of know what I needed to do. And it only really dawned on me the other day that I have now been there for nearly over 6 months, and I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't quite figured it out, but I am getting closer. But having been on both sides, what I have learned is that there inevitably has to be some kind of balance. Because while it was great having that success of being in sales, of earning far more than I needed, and having an abundance of finance, it came with the stress, and that was that balance. And when I have my job at the postal service, I obviously earn substantially less than I used to, probably a third of what I used to make. And I only really make a couple of £100 more a month than I actually need for my expenses. But of course, the flip side of that is that I have no stress. You know, I'm just given a bag of mail, I sort my mail, I go out, I post, I come back, I'm finished, I come home, I don't have to think about it. And while that has been great, for me personally, what I have realised is that there isn't enough of a challenge in that. And that we all spend so much of our lives trying to avoid stress. And obviously stress has these massive negative connotations. But I think humans are by nature designed to embrace a challenge, to thrive in a challenge. And that is ultimately how we grow. And for me personally, I only really feel joy in life when I am growing. And it is when I am stuck and I'm stagnating and I'm not moving in any particular direction, I start to become... It begins with a feeling of just being lost, of like not really understanding what my purpose is. And then I'll lean into something like, I don't know, video games or something to kind of just try and forget about that. But eventually that voice becomes so loud that tells me that I need to start doing something. I need to start moving, and I need to find, or at least attempt to start finding something that gives me some level of purpose. And so I'm learning at the age of 34, nearly 35 in a couple of weeks, that you need stress, that there are certain things that you might have considered as negatives when you were younger that are actually positives, that are necessary if you want to have a life that gives you meaning and purpose. And I think we all feel so much better when we are growing, but the price of growth is discomfort and of stress at times. That is the ticket price. That is the cost of entry to the stadium of growth. And if you're not prepared to pay that price, then you may suffer in ways that you hadn't quite predicted. Because, you know, it's sold as this idea. So many people sell courses, and there's this whole idea that like they'd love to be working from the beach. You know, there was this massive growth, particularly when COVID hit, about becoming like an online entrepreneur, a digital nomad, and being able to work from a laptop on the beach. And the beauty of the internet and of YouTube and of social media is that it enabled this kind of lifestyle for a lot of people. And you'll notice that a lot of these people now are back in their hometowns, in their home cities. They have a base somewhere. They're not traveling. And they are all saying how it's not what they thought it would be. And that it was quite lonely, that it was quite isolating, that they didn't like not having a base, that they felt uprooted. And I think it is baked into our DNA to have a base, to have somewhere to be, to have a tribe around us, to have a community. And I think ultimately what a lot of people are trying to do is escape areas of their life that they're not necessarily happy with. But the issue is more not necessarily of the thing itself that you're trying to escape, it's your mentality towards it. And that mentality you can't escape, you will take with you regardless of where you go. So I'm learning that really life is all about balance. It is about finding something that challenges you, something that gives you purpose, something that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning, gives you a problem to solve. And I think if you can do that, you are already substantially ahead of a lot of people in the world, because I think a lot of people do just kind of bury their heads in the sand. They do their jobs, they get on with their jobs, but they don't really ever stop to question why. And when that question why does come up, they will do whatever they can to bury it. They will play video games, or they will drink, or they will take drugs, or they will book themselves a holiday, or buy a nice car, or whatever. These are all things that are designed to kind of suppress this question of why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And so that is, I think, what I want to dedicate this channel to, is to really understanding, particularly around career and around finance, because they're two areas that are unavoidable in our lives. Like, we need those things. We need to have career because a career gives us purpose, and we need to have finances because we need to eat, and we need to have a roof over our head and clothes on our back. But I think it's also important that we have things that we like, that bring us joy in life. And so I want to dedicate this channel to, I guess, like holistic career advice, holistic financial advice. It's not about getting rich, but it's about designing a life that gives us this purpose and fulfillment, but also has a financial benefit as well. And who says we can't have all those things? I think we really need to be clear and quantify exactly what it is that we want and what we need. I think a lot of people don't take the time to really know the answer to that question, but I think if we really can understand exactly what it is that we need, and I think you'll realise that maybe that isn't as much as you thought or you would have been led to believe. So there is some exciting stuff coming up on this channel. There's a guy that I am probably likely to be working with in the future that does some fantastic content on career, and I have personally been through some of his material and have found it incredibly useful. I may also be starting to work with someone that has a lot of experience in building business, in managing their finances, in managing, I guess, their world. And he has some very interesting takes. So I think I'm going to maybe try and get these guys on the channel, interview them. So maybe it's kind of have a kind of podcast type thing, because I don't have all the answers. But one thing I do have that has separated me from the herd most of the time is curiosity. I've always known how to ask good questions, and I've always been a good learner. And if I can record that process, then you can learn from that too. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope it's given you some kind of benefit. I hope it's given you something to think about. And let me know in the comments, as always, what kind of came up for you. And if you're maybe excited about this idea of having guests on the channel that are experts in their field, that will be able to provide you with more information that will help you live a more balanced, holistic lifestyle, where you are working at goals that excite you, that invigorate you, that bring you some joy in life, but that also don't burn you out and stress you too much. So yeah, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's been a little while since I've made a video. I've been really struggling to kind of balance everything in my life at the moment. There's been a lot of stuff going on, but I'm trying to put out as many videos and newsletters as I can. If you are interested in subscribing to the newsletter, there is a link in the description below as well. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.